What have we confirmed this week? Joe. Between Hunter and Afghanistan, we now know that you not only is your pullout game weak, it's just. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're here to talk about economics, politics, foreign policy, veterans issues, reform the criminal justice system, and drug laws. This channel probably will offend you, but most importantly, this is where socialism comes to die. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I'm finally back. I managed to finish up school and get some other stuff that I was working on completed. I've been trying to get some more writing done, which you'll start seeing published on, at a minimum, LinkedIn, and I'm submitting it to a few places to see about getting it published. Also, going into this video on Afghanistan, I've shot this video. This is the fourth time because it's a very personal thing to me. I spent a lot of time in Afghanistan. I watched the Afghan nation grow from a group of militias that were within the same borders to an actual national army with a president. And so it's very personal to me. I lost friends there. I have friends that came back that will never be the same again. So as we're going through this, just please be prepared for me to jump around a little bit because it is very personal. And on top of that, it's day 2 of me not smoking after smoking for years and years. So bear with me on that too, because I'm not going to go back to smoking just so I can do videos. All right, I have some notes as we're going through this, but before we get started, please like, subscribe, share with your friends. Let me know what you think in the comments. The subscribers really are the lifeblood of the channel, and it's what's helped it grow to where it is. And if you disagree with what I have to say, go ahead and subscribe. Let me know in the comments, because if you don't like this, you probably won't like other stuff. So go ahead and rewatch the rest of my videos and let me know what you don't like about them too. Trust me, the algorithm will punish me for it. Now, let's get going with Afghanistan. So let's clarify a couple of things about the Taliban in general. One, and most importantly, the Taliban was not a terrorist organization until we invaded. We did not declare them a terrorist organization until after 9/11 happened and after we put boots on the ground in Afghanistan. What they were up to that point was a political party, brutal or not, they were still a political party that believed in Sharia law, that ruled Afghanistan, that allowed Al Qaeda to operate training camps there. They did that because they needed money. Well, now looks like they're going to let China in for the same reason, because they need money. But there'll be another video Saturday or Monday, depending on when I can get the full information I need to finish up that video, about why China wants influence in Afghanistan. Getting back to the video that we were working on. So they were not a terrorist organization until it became convenient to label them one. As far as attacks from the Taliban, there was never an attack on a U.S. ship, a U.S. embassy, or home soil from Taliban. Never was, still hasn't been. There have been attacks against our assets in Pakistan. There have been assets against our assets in Afghanistan, but never have the Taliban struck us outside of that region. So keep that in mind as we're moving forward. And we will discuss the possible for the exportation of terrorists that are training within Afghanistan, but we'll also talk about a timeline, and we'll use 9/11 as the example for that. Although it was an extremely major attack, it is good just to get a perspective of time, because Americans suck at context. They don't understand how long it takes for something to grow, for something to develop, and to execute something. It's why we will never win a counterinsurgency fight. It's just we're incapable of it based on the level of patience Americans are willing to display. Now, the president has come out and said, as I'm filming this video, it is the 25th. I lost track of the days for a second. So next Tuesday, we have to be 100% withdrawn. We have to have all our troops out of Afghanistan. Now, several people have come out, and you have the president's spokesperson, the president, saying Americans are not stranded. Then you have the Department of Defense coming out and saying they are stranded. Then the Department of State comes out and says they're not stranded. Then somebody else comes out and says they're stranded. Well, here's the deal, just logically speaking. If they've closed down if there's only one major airport open in Kabul, and Afghanistan is well known across the world, ask the British, ask the Russians, ask us, if you control a few passes, you can stop anybody from getting to Kabul. which includes American citizens in Kandahar or Herat or Mazar Sharif or somewhere else where they're trying to do good work and help develop the country, they can't make it to Kabul to get on that plane, which means there will be hostage situations. There will probably be more Americans killed by the Taliban. And the other part of this is, even if the central government in Kabul is willing to let American citizens and British citizens, German citizens, because we're not in this alone. The same coalition forces that were there during the fight are there now trying to pull our citizens out. And their same citizens will be some of the ones that get stranded when we pull out on the 31st. The thing to think about is the central government only has so much power in Afghanistan. That has always been the case from the time that Alexander tried to conquer it, to the time that the Romans tried, to the time that the British tried, to the time that the Russians tried, to when we were there. You have a very limited amount of control radiating from Kabul. And although there was a continuity of effort by all these separate bands, because that's probably the best way to put it, Taliban, to capture not just Kabul, but Herat and Kandahar and Jalalabad and Mazar Sharif and all these other provincial capitals and take care of these provinces. Well, once they're taken over, then they start breaking apart again and they become fiefdoms. And inside those fiefdoms, members of the Taliban in Kandahar are going to do what members of the Taliban in Kandahar want to do, which means if that is release Americans to travel to Kabul, that's great. Or to take them hostage. And there's only so much control that the central Taliban government and Kabul is going to have. Just like there was only so much control the government in Kabul had under Karzai, or the coward that ran away. So with that being said, yes, there probably will be hostage incidents that happen. There probably will be Americans that are killed between now and then. And I don't say that with a straight face, and I don't try to make light of it, but it's what's probably going to happen. So we might as well accept that now. Do we have the ability, the equipment, and the personnel to go in and rescue those hostages? We do. But it does not mean we need to extend time on the Kabul and the Karzai International Airport in Kabul. It does not mean we put another division of American troops in there. It means we use our special operations forces for what they're designed to do. And that is hostage rescue and counterterror. We do not need a presence on the ground to actually put in jumpers by military freefall or deep level helicopter penetration to conduct a raid to free our hostages and bring them back. We are capable of doing that anywhere in the world with almost no notice. I will say that in a heartbeat, and that is not telling any secrets. That is just knowledge that is there, because all you got to do is look around and you'll see it. We're capable of doing that, which also means we can strike a terrorist anywhere in the world that we truly wanted to if our government was willing to take the risk. The men and women who serve in our special operations are willing to take that risk. They always have been. They know that going in, that this could happen. So let's stop playing games. Let's accept the fact that, yes, on the 31st, next Tuesday, we will leave the Kabul airport. There will be Americans left. What is our plan to go get them? Accept that going in, and then we can move forward from there. The other thing I want to talk about that I find very important is for these military veterans, especially retired generals, the colonels, the intel people, the politicians who are ambassadors, or they were part of the intel policy making or the day-to-day operations in Afghanistan policy making, or even the reporters that are talking about this. If you knew so goddamn much while we were doing it, why didn't you win when you were in charge? Why? Because you're full of shit. Because you won't admit hindsight's 2020, and you won't admit the mistakes you made. You just talk about what we should do going forth. Now, as far as the politicians, and Matt Gaetz is a good example, and yes, I'm going to call him out by name, and I'm going to say something after this about a few other politicians because I don't hold them in the same disregard. You're out there yelling and screaming about we're going to get revenge for anything that happens. Where were you when it was your time to put on a uniform, pick up a rifle, and go do your job for your country? You weren't. You were busy getting a DUI, and you were busy being accused of hanging out with underage women. So keep that in mind before you open your big mouth about putting America's sons and daughters in danger. Now, with that being said about politicians, let me clarify something. People like Senator Tom Cotton, Senator Dan Crenshaw, Tammy Duckworth, they did do that. They put their lives on the line for where their principles were. And I respect that. And any politician, there's too many of them to actually go through and try to memorize their names. But the politicians that stood up when their country called and went out and did that, I do support them. I mean, I don't always agree with them, but I respect the choice they made and I respect what they have to say because they did come when their country called. Now, as far as veterans, generals I've already talked about, if you were so goddamn smart when you were in charge, why didn't we win? And I was there for some of them when they were in command of Afghanistan. The policy changes, we're going to count chickens and do a newsletter for CENTCOM. Just over and over, and the changes and the inconsistencies in policy. That's why we fail in counterinsurgency. That's why we will always fail. This is the other part, that those veterans that, because of one or two incidents in their career, most of which left service early, but one or two incidents in their career where they were able to write a book or a movie was made about one incident in their career, and suddenly they're famous, and suddenly they become strategists at the theater and national level, which they're not. They've never been formally trained to do that. They don't understand how it works. They don't even truly understand the history of counterinsurgency and insurgency warfare as much as they say they want to. So you know what? Your vote doesn't count because you're a fucking moron when it comes to this. You do not understand what's really going on because of your 15 minutes of fame. So stop saying you do. You do not understand the economic implications that comes with attempting nation building in a place that's never been a nation. You barely understand the apparatus of building a state. So stop fucking talking about this because you don't know what you're saying. Now, moving along, there are some high points to this. To the soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines of the United States, to the paratroopers of Britain and France, to the Special Operations Forces of Norway and Spain. And as far as I've heard, there's also German troops there attempting to pull our citizens out. I tell you, keep your head down, stay safe, and know that we're thinking about you. Know that we support what you were trying to do. We see it on the news. We know what it's really like. We know the tightrope that you're walking every single day with trying to assist in getting your citizens out and assisting the Afghans that assisted us through 20 years of war. The other high note to end on. General Massoud, who led the Northern Alliance until just before the 9/11 attacks, who was assassinated by Al-Qaeda, his son and the vice president of Afghanistan are in the Panjshir. He has taken his place as the son of the Lion of the Panjshir, and they are still fighting. And they, with remnants of the Afghan National Army and Afghan Special Forces, will continue to fight. It is their nature. They are a warrior people. They will not give in to the Taliban. And the average citizen in Afghanistan is now starting to stand up. Although they're being killed, there's reports of them being killed in Kabul and in Jalalabad. They are still standing up to the Taliban, which is something they did not do before. The fight is not lost for the people of Afghanistan. And I would ask, whether we have troops on the ground or not, we remember this. As a child, I grew up watching the Mujahideen on the news, fighting the Soviets, fighting a modern war with freaking rocks, rolling boulders through the rotor blades of Hind-D attack helicopters in the Kavkaz Pass, which I later got to travel as an adult. And I met some of them. And what I will say is, to those freedom fighters in the Panjshir, to the members of the Afghan security forces still trying to fight, we will figure out a way to support you. To those average men and women who are protesting in the streets in Jalalabad and Kabul, you are not forgotten. And damn it, the one thing that we have done as Americans that we have always done, we're doing it again. You can say what you want about this is not the fall of Saigon in 1975. I know that picture of the Huey leaving the embassy in Saigon looked a lot like the picture of that Chinook leaving the embassy in Kabul. And once again, we as a country have abandoned those populations that assisted us in those wars. We did it in Vietnam. We're doing it again here. And if you don't think we did it in Vietnam, ask the Montagnards, ask the Hmong, Ask the Nung Chinese that fought and died next to Americans. And based on extending the withdrawal by 3 months and still not having a plan, our president, our Secretary of State, and our Secretary of Defense have allowed this to happen all over again in Afghanistan. We have not done what we promised them. We have failed once again, and the eyes of the world will judge us for that. And hopefully, come 2022 and 2024, the president and the politicians involved will be judged for that. I know I will judge them for that at the polls, because that's the best I can do. I can talk about it here and I can judge them for it at the polls. So, my fellow Americans, stand up and start judging people for what they do wrong. If you want to see a change, then make your voice heard on social media. Make your voice heard at the polling place. Do not let us go into another country and abandon people who supported us. Do not let us walk into another war, rightly or wrongly, that starts off to eradicate a terrorist group and becomes nation building. That is not what we do. That is not what the military does. They will try to if you give them that mission, but it's a near impossible mission. You can't create a nation where there wasn't one before. And that's what they were asked to do this time. So to the service members serving there, both American and coalition, and to those that have served there, do not look at this as something you did wrong. You did everything that was asked of you. You did it repeatedly. In many cases, I knew 22-year-old young men who had spent 3 years in Afghanistan by that point in their lives. They did nothing wrong. They did exactly what they were asked to do. The problem is you kept changing what you were asking them to do, politicians. Stop doing that. Give them a clear-cut mission or don't send them at all. And if our only goal is to eradicate a terrorist group, then let the special operations forces of us and our coalition partners do what we have trained them to do. Do what we pay them to do. Let them go in and take them out. They're willing to take the risk. They're willing to take more risks than politicians are with their own lives. And I respect that, and I love that about them. But allow them to do it. As I close this out, I know there's going to be people that disagree with what I have to say. I really don't care. If you agree with me, please like, subscribe, let me know in the comments. You can follow me on social media. It's down at the bottom of the screen. If you disagree with what I have to say, then go ahead and let me know in the comments. We can have a civil debate about it if you want to. I'll have you on live and we'll talk about it.